Hi, this is the day 9 question. What inner states reliably change when the outer conditions of my life shift, and what does that suggest about their independence? Okay. What inner states reliably change when the outer conditions of my life shift, and what does that suggest about their independence? This one feels hard. So this is under the category of this quarter. I think, yeah, I had a good old ChatGPT break down my questions into quarters, and this quarter is destabilizing the location of truth, inner outer relational. And that makes sense because it sounds like this question is trying to get at the influence of inner and outer states, and maybe trying to have us tease those apart a bit, or just kind of recognize the influences between the two. I would assume because, to come to a state of more peacefulness and equanimity, which I would assume is an admirable thing to strive for. Like that's kind of like what we are. It seems like humans just want to feel peaceful, to feel happy, and that's the emotion like we want. I think I can say that confidently, question mark. So anyway, given those assumptions, yeah, I think it does sound like this is saying, like, it's pointing to, like, are the inner and outer, how are they influencing you? Because if you really want to be peaceful and equanimous, then you won't let the external world influence your internal state. The internal state may, like, that's what happiness is. It's an internal state. Peacefulness, an internal state. So I'm sorry to break down this question, but it's like, wait, what's it getting at? I had to, like, frame it in my own mind way. So I'm like, okay, assuming. So I think that's why this question even is in my collection of questions, is because I asked ChatGPT to really, like, I said, here are all the things I like to think about. Give me some questions. And then we went round and round and round and round about like fine tuning and making sure none were repeated, because they kept repeating stuff and, like, being too simple, too open ended, like, what's here? And I'm like, while I love that question, I wanted, like, really, like, gritty, detailed questions that we could chew on, and also go there, like, oh. So anyway, sorry, I'm getting all meta with this question. Okay, so what inner states reliably change when the outer conditions of my life shift, and what does that suggest about their independence? For me personally, the ones I notice the most are relational, for sure, like in my interactions with other people, because I love people. I love to interact with people. I want people to feel at peace. Like, I love when people feel good inside their own bodies, that they feel at home in their own bodies, they feel at peace in their own bodies. I don't have a stake in that game unless they're walking in my door as a client, but even out and about, I just love seeing people at ease. It just fills me with joy. And it's just like, man, they are just chilling, because it doesn't feel good to me when people are in an agitated state, like, it's just like, it's like, can't you feel that? You don't have to say, I'm an empath, Sorry, that was snarky. What's wrong with me? We're all empathic creatures. That's why I got a little snarky. It's like, why do we have to create an identity around it? That's a different video. Sorry, let's get on track. So anyway, I just that's why I think this question takes me to the relational space, is because when I see somebody out there in the world, especially if we're interacting and they're in a like not peaceful state, not at ease in themselves, then my internal state changes, and I can feel it, or at least I don't know if it changes in the sense that I become exactly what they seem to be embodying. No, but something changes, and I maybe feel sometimes, not always, a little uncomfortable, like, oh, that doesn't feel good, to interact with this person because of the way they appear to me, which may not be accurate. I do have to say, it's not that I have like the objective perception here. It's just that whatever's going on in our field, like that I am picking up on from the outside, I can feel like it does feel dependent, because it says, what does that suggest about their independence? So if my state is changing based on what I'm perceiving outside, they do seem to be dependent. But we know that's not true, or it's true on some levels, and it might be true on the surface level. But what's that really pointing to? I feel like maybe the first surface level dependent, like perceived dependence, is really a pointer to something deeper that really then breaks apart that linkage and makes it independent. So for example, if somebody out there is agitated, a little erratic, and then I feel something rising up in me, I know personally in that specific scenario, or like that example, that it goes back to probably, again, I can't speak for certain on anything because I literally know nothing, that it probably goes back to childhood when my surroundings weren't safe, and if people were agitated, or like if things were if I was uncertain how that something was going to play out, it was a scary, dangerous place. So it's like that still rises up in me as much as I worked on it. Obviously I worked on it because I can speak about it. We used to not be able to even do that, but it still happens. It's a nervous system response to say threat, 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 even though there's probably no threat unless somebody's waving weapons around. But I'm talking about people who just might be having an argument, or getting mad at their kid, or even just saying like something not kind or not aware. Sometimes those little micro things, I'm like, oh, that kid's gonna be scarred in ways they won't understand until they're 37. That's me projecting. I'm not a psychologist, but I feel those things, and it probably goes back. So that's what I mean. Like at the surface level, it was like, oh, cause and effect. That happened out there. I feel this in here. But when I dig deeper, I'm like, this inner state is not really dependent on that person, on that happening. This is a pointer. What's happening here is a pointer to some other dependence. Like this is dependent on me not having fully healed my conditioning from childhood. Truly conditioning, meaning I have no control over this. It just happens because it was conditioned into me at a very impressionable point in biological development. So I don't know if that's what this question really wants me to think about, but who cares? That's what I'm thinking about, is how it feels like this word, maybe I don't like the word dependent. Like there's like a reaction I'm having, but it's not always. So it's like the outer conditions. Okay, so let's maybe take a different example. The outer conditions of my life shifting. I've moved, let's say I've moved a lot in my life. I think I said on another video, like I totaled up how many times I've moved, and it's like a ridiculous number for how old I am. And it's like 27 times in 37 years. And now I'm 48, so I've been in the same place, longer. That's why I say 37. That's how many times I've moved. So I was always on the move. And thinking back, like looking back, I have the gift of 2020, like hindsight, because I didn't always think this way or, reflect on this. But I was always on the go. There was always this like urgency about things. There was always like a planning mode, like this excitement for like, ooh, things are shifting. And I told myself I like to move. I like new places and packing, there's a lot of activity. Then I get someplace and yay, there's a lot of activity, like setting it stuff up, getting my space like how I wanted. And then, well, this is boring. Let's move again. So that was like, but it wasn't exactly like that because, it was fine, whatever. Life is life. It's full. And but there was always this, this bubbling up energy of like, ooh, yay, something new. And stagnancy, like nothing's new. It's kind of this, there's a problem here. I can't quite put my finger on it, but yeah, we got to go. So that felt very, looking back, it seemed dependent, that all those internal states seemed dependent on my external environment, what was going on around me. And it was really it's all internal. It's that scenario, because it has nothing to do with where I live. Has nothing to do with that. It was all about me not yet having looked at or examined this need for escape and need for novelty. And, this like, I think I was addicted or obsessed. I don't know what word you want to use, but, I gotta face reality like 27 times. So anyway, that seems like, you might say, well, like in my unaware self, I was like, well, I'm kind of like, I've played this scenario out. I'm kind of bored. There's like, nothing is challenging me to grow. And that's sometimes the way I would frame it. Like, I think this has played itself out. There's nothing left. Like, it's almost like I was waiting for my external environment to trigger an internal state. And when it was very much, and there was no like internal state, then I perceived it like an activated internal state. Then I perceived it as like a negative, almost a stagnancy or depressed kind of state. But really, it was probably just like, hey, you're good. You are calm. You're settled, you're rooted, you're grounded. And to me, that was like, So anyway, that's just a little example. But I don't know if that's, again, what this wants. But I do think it's trying to ask us to understand, like to really look at how we perceive our external environment influencing our internal states. And really, with our internal states, I think the external environment is often a scapegoat. We blame the external environment, say, you made me feel this way. Don't you love it when we say that? Like, you made me feel this way. I've had some interesting relationship conversations, but one person will say, well, you made me feel this way when you, like, we're having a nice conversation. You made me feel this way when you said that. And I've said that myself too. And I'm like, how do you kindly tell someone, like, nobody makes us feel anyway, but there's a time and place for that conversation. You don't always just go there. So anyway, that was a tangent too. But I do think that the external environment, the conditions of our life, often become a scapegoat for what we feel in here that we're not ready to yet examine closely and honestly and humbly and openly and acceptingly. So I do like this question for that reason, that it's like trying to get us to really look at that. And I will just end on one note. What happened to the adverb? Why don't kids these days like adverbs? I love words that end in ly. That's what I was just saying. All those adverbs made me think, why are they killing the adverb? It got so serious. Like when people say, don't take it personal. And I thought, wait, aren't we supposed to say don't take it personally? And then but that's just one example. And there's like a bazillion examples where my ear is listening for the adverb ly and it never comes. And so there's this like and it never comes. And I've got to talk to some teachers because I think, Google this a couple months back, or probably like half a year ago. I have no idea. And there was a whole explanation from Google, or the AI engine in Google, saying like why they're not necessary anymore. And there was an article, was it a Medium article? Because those are based in scientific research. But I think it was an article on Medium or something where somebody was like, let it die. Just let it die. And I'm like, but I don't want to let it die. I love adverbs. Don't you? I just wanted to end with that and just make my plea to the universe to like keep some of them. Like some of them are nice. And so my husband and I, when we're texting, because he's a fan of the adverb too, he doesn't understand why they're dying, but we're old, we're like middle-aged now, so we will capitalize the ly when we are using a good adverb, and we want to have a winky moment with each other that says, oh, I see you, you're giving me the adverb, thank you, I appreciate that. You got to find your people.